Welcome to the 36th Annual Mississippi College Academic Competition. The competition began the year with 26 teams from high schools across the state. Teams are matched in a quiz bowl-like competition, utilizing questions developed and tested for the high school level. Our goal is to recognize academic knowledge, to encourage learning, and to foster the spirit of competition and fair play. We have reached the quarterfinals. This match features Taylorsville versus East Rankin Academy. Let's meet the teams.
Taylorsville, Austin Stringer, senior.
Weston Phipps, sophomore.
Matthew Upchurch, senior.
Dylan Williams, senior.
Victoria McGill, senior.
Kawana Johnson, senior.
East Rankin, Will Price, sophomore.
Baron Burnham, junior.
Tyler Butts, senior.
Ethan Crane, senior.
Here's the first toss-up question of round one for 10 points. Which chemical element, when dropped on a smooth surface, forms globules that move about freely and quickly, a characteristic prompting its name Quicksilver?
East Rankin, Ethan.
Mercury.
Yes.
For 5 points, identify the man-made chemical element whose atomic number is 97. It was first prepared and identified in 1949 at the University of California at Berkeley.
East Rankin, Tyler.
Californium.
No.
After which the element was named. Time, Berkeleum. A 5-point toss-up. Which term for a single digit in a binary number system designates the smallest unit of information in computer terminology?
East Rankin, Tyler.
Bit.
Yes.
Correct. A 10-point toss-up. Which woman was turned into salt after the angels ordered her and her husband to flee the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and not to look back? She looked back and was immediately transformed.
East Rankin, Ethan.
Lot's wife.
Yes.
Correct. A math question for 10 points. If a true-false test consists of 3 questions, in how many different ways can the questions be answered?
East Rankin, Tyler.
8.
Yes.
Correct. A 15-point toss-up. Who was the longest-serving leader of the Soviet Union?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Time?
East Rankin, Will.
Joseph Stalin.
Yes.
Correct. Another math question for 10 points. If a pentagon has angles of measures 100 degrees, 100 degrees, 116 degrees, and 108 degrees, what is the measure of the 5th angle?
East Rankin, Tyler.
16 degrees.
No.
Time, the answer is 116 degrees. All right, a 20-point toss-up. About which British leader did France's Francois Mitterrand say in 1990, she has the eyes of Caligula?
East Rankin, Ethan.
Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
A 15-point toss-up. Complete the term blank and blank, used to designate the military strategy of influencing an enemy to surrender by a display of overwhelming power.
Taylorsville, Dylan.
Guerrilla warfare.
No.
The U.S.'s strategy in the early attack in Baghdad in 2003.
East Rankin, Tyler.
Shock and awe.
Yes.
That's it. A 15-point toss-up. Which adjective meaning pertaining to the stomach commonly precedes the words juice and ulcer?
East Rankin, Tyler.
Gastric.
Yes.
A 5-point toss-up. Which word designates both a person who fraudulently practices medicine and the sound made by a duck?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Quack.
Yes.
A 20-point toss-up. Identify the father of the American hydrogen bomb, who was engaged to work on the Star Wars program of President Reagan. His initials are E.T.
East Rankin, Tyler.
Thomas.
No. Time, Edward Teller. A 15-point toss-up. Name the mathematician whose many contributions to engineering, architecture, and cartography included the 3-wheeled Dymaxion car, the Dymaxion air ocean world map, and the geodesic dome.
East Rankin, Tyler.
Fuller.
Yes.
A math question for 10 points. What is the sum of the arithmetic and geometric means of 3 and 12?
East Rankin, Tyler.
13 and a half.
Correct. A 20-point toss-up. Name the British Prime Minister who on January the 31st, 1770, decided to retain the tea duty on the North American colonies.
Taylorsville, Weston.
Walpole.
No.
Time, Lord North. A 10-point toss-up. Glucose has the empirical formula C6H12O6. Name another simple sugar with the same empirical formula.
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Fructose?
That is correct. And that is the end of round 1. We'll be back in a minute with the preliminary score. At the end of round 1, our score is Taylorsville 15, East Rankin Academy 125. Let's proceed to the second round. Here's our first toss-up for 10 points. Identify the official nickname of the state of Washington that is derived from its many firs, hemlocks, pines, and other conifers.
East Rankin, Will.
The Evergreen State.
Yes.
That is correct. Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following concerning deaths for 5 points. American singer, songwriter, actress, and pianist who died in 2017 at the age of 76. She was known as the Queen of Soul. You can talk freely. Captain gives the answer.
Don't know. Is it Mariah Carey? I really don't know. I don't know. I can't give you
Need an answer, please?
anything.
Mariah Carey.
No.
No. Aretha Franklin it was. Let's go back to another toss-up question for 15 points. What law states that the entropy of a perfect crystal is 0 at a temperature of absolute 0?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
The law of thermodynamics?
More specific. East Rankin.
Law
East
of-
Rankin, Barron.
The second law of thermodynamics.
No.
No, it's the third law of thermodynamics. Here is another toss-up for 10 points. Identify the Australian city whose name is shared by Charles Dickens' character Carton in A Tale of Two Cities. This city was the site of the 2000 Summer Olympics.
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Sydney?
Yes.
Sydney it is. Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following concerning memory for 5 points. General psychological term designating a loss of memory
Amnesia?
Yes.
for 10 points. President so closely identified with the March of Dimes campaign for polio research that Congress honored his memory by depicting his likeness on U.S. dimes.
FDR?
Yes.
For 15 points. Which Spanish artist painted Persistence of Memory, also known as Soft Melting Watches, in 1932?
Picasso?
No.
No, for 15 points.
Yes.
Dali it is. Back to a toss-up for 10 points. On the morning after he pulled a stunning upset victory in a presidential election, which president-elect said,
East Rankin, Will.
Harry Truman.
Yes.
correct. Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following concerning U.S. history for 5 points. Person who invented the telegraph or talking wires in 1844.
Morse, right?
Morse.
Yes.
For 10 points. City in which the U.S. Naval Academy formally opened in October the 10th, 1845.
Annapolis, pretty sure.
Annapolis.
Yes.
For 15 points. When James K. Polk was elected in 1844 on the motto 54-40 or fight, he was pledging to fight for a treaty setting the border for which territory at 54 degrees 40 minutes latitude, a move opposed by Britain.
Oregon.
Yes.
And for 20 points, 2 words completing John Lewis O'Sullivan's 1845 statement in support of the U.S. annexation of Texas. Our blank is to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions.
Manifest Destiny.
That is it. Back to a toss-up question for 10 points. What two-word phrase describes a power of perception beyond the five senses?
East Rankin, Tyler.
Sixth Sense.
Yes.
Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following concerning Canada. For 5 points, what city is the capital of Canada?
Ontario. I think it's maybe Ottawa. Go with that, because I don't know Canada.
Ottawa.
Yes.
Correct. For 10 points, which Canadian province is bordered by Saskatchewan, the Northwest Territories, British Columbia, and Montana?
Alberta.
Yes.
Correct. For 15 points, province that shares its name with a city in New Jersey and borders on Maine and no other state.
Where Newfoundland, I don't know. Yeah, go with that.
Nova Scotia.
No.
No. For 15 points, Taylorsville.
Ontario.
No, it's New Brunswick. A 20-point toss-up. With which battle is the phrase, the shot heard round the world? We're not going to be able to finish that question. That is the end of round 2. We'll be back in a moment with a preliminary score. At the end of our second round of competition, the score is Taylorsville 45, East Rankin 235. Let's proceed to round 3. Here's our first toss-up question for 10 points. Calculate the pH of a 0.0001 molar solution of hydrochloric acid.
East Rankin, Tyler.
4.
Yes.
Correct. Here's your bonus question. Answer each of the following questions concerning physics. For 5 points, which unit of measurement, named for Swedish physicist Anders Jonas Blank, is used in measuring wavelength?
That's frequency, right?
Wavelength. Nanometers is equal to what?
Need an answer, please.
No answer.
Okay, take that as no answer. For 5 points, Taylorsville.
Hertz.
No.
No, angstrom. Angstrom. A 15-point toss-up. In which state did an oil boom occur in the early 1860s, soon after Edwin Drake drilled a well near Titusville?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Alaska.
No.
East Rankin, Will.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania it is. Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following concerning music. For 5 points, word meaning high designated the second or third highest voice in a family of instruments, such as blank flute or blank sax.
Soprano.
No.
No. For 5 points, Taylorsville.
No answer.
Okay, second highest is alto. Alto. A 20-point toss-up. Who was approved 98-0 by the U.S. Senate as the first woman Attorney General in U.S. history in 19...
East Rankin, Will.
Janet Reno.
That is correct. Here's your bonus question. Answer each of the following concerning chemistry. For 5 points, how many hydrogen atoms are in a molecule of benzene?
Go with it.
9.
No.
No. For 5 points, Taylorsville?
6.
Yes.
6 is correct. A toss-up for 15. What is the name of Asgard's Great Hall with 540 doors?
East Rankin, Tyler.
Correct. Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following by giving an answer beginning with the letters PH. All answers are PH. For 5 points, title of the later kings of Egypt derived from 2 Egyptian words for great house.
Yeah,
Pharaoh.
Yes.
For 10 points, group of Jewish people who followed strict religious laws.
Pharisees.
Yes.
For 15 points, which word derived from the Greek flus for bark designates the living tissues in plants that transport soluble foods that are made in the leaves of a plant by photosynthesis?
Phloem.
Yes.
And for 20 points, one of the greatest of the Greek sculptors.
Pericles.
No, for 20 points, Taylorsville.
No answer.
Phidias was his name. A 10-point toss-up. Identify Rome's first main highway, the Regina Viarum, or
East Rankin, Tyler.
The Appian Way.
correct. Here's your bonus question. Identify each of the following Americans. For 5 points, 19th century Confederate leader whose citizenship was restored by Jimmy Carter in 1978.
Lee, probably. I don't know. Robert E. Lee.
No.
No, for 5 points, Taylorsville.
Jackson.
No.
No, he's a Mississippian. Jefferson Davis. A 15-point toss-up. Identify the first woman to lie in honor in the Capitol Rotunda. This mother of the modern civil rights movement died in 2005 at age 92.
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Rosa Parks.
That is correct. Here is your bonus question. Identify each of the following, all of which contain the word also. For 5 points, name given to any of the 9 orders of angels and also to any group of singers organized and trained to sing together, especially in a church. You can still answer. Need an answer?
Choir.
Correct. For 10 points, identify the single-celled protozoan whose name has come to also designate anything that has an indefinite shape, since it must change its shape to move about.
Amoeba.
Yes.
For 15 points, Hungarian composer who originated the symphonic poem and also wrote 20 Hungarian rhapsodies.
Hayden.
No.
No, for 15 points, East Rankin.
List.
Yes.
That is correct. And that is the end of round 3. We'll be back in a moment with a preliminary score. At the end of 3 rounds, our score is Taylorsville 80, East Rankin Academy 345. Let's move on to our final round. First toss-up is for 10 points. It is a math question. Points A, B, and C lie on a line segment in that order. Given that AC equals 12 and BC equals 4, what is the ratio in lowest terms of AB to BC?
East Rankin, Tyler.
2 to 1.
Correct. A 10-point toss-up. How many electrons are in the outer shell of magnesium?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
8.
No. East Rankin, Tyler.
2.
Yes.
Correct. A 10-point toss-up. Identify either of the 2 books of the Bible in which the 10 Commandments appear.
East Rankin, Will.
Exodus.
Yes.
Correct. A math question for 10 points. If A equals -2 and B equals -3, find the value of -2AB squared.
East Rankin, Tyler.
Negative 72.
No. Taylorsville, Matthew.
36.
Yes.
There-
I'm sorry, what?
Here's another toss-up question for 10 points.
Okay.
After the discovery of radioactivity by Henri Becquerel, name one of the 2 new elements isolated by the Curies in 1898.
East Rankin, Tyler.
Curium.
No. Taylorsville, Wesson.
Nope, polonium or radium. A 10-point toss-up. Identify the country whose industrial espionage in the U.S. is the subject of Michael Crichton's 1992 novel, Rising Sun.
East Rankin, Ethan.
Japan.
Yes.
Correct. For 5 points. Which number completes the phrase from the blank corners of the earth, meaning everywhere?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
4.
Yes.
A 10-point toss-up. Name the state where President Clinton stood in 1998 beside Narragansett Bay to introduce new federal drinking water standards. He also spoke of a lifelong wish of playing his saxophone at its Newport Jazz Festival.
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Louisiana.
No.
No.
East Rankin, Will.
New Jersey.
No.
Rhode Island, a 20-point toss-up. Name the March 5th, 1770 incident during which a small group of soldiers under the command of Captain Thomas Preston.
East Rankin, Will.
Boston Massacre.
Yes.
That's correct. A mathy question for 15. What is the velocity of a wave with wavelength of 7 meters and frequency of 12 hertz?
East Rankin, Tyler.
7/12 meters per second.
No.
Time correct answer, 84 meters per second. A 20-point toss-up. What was the name of the river George Washington crossed in
East Rankin, Will.
Delaware.
Yes.
for 15 points? Give the term for the lines Alexander von Humboldt introduced on the weather map to connect points of equal temperature. Time correct answer, isotherms. A 20-point toss-up. Name the American couple executed in the 1950s after being convicted of giving military secrets to Soviet agents in the 1940s.
East Rankin, Ethan.
The Rosenbergs.
Yes.
Correct. For 10 points. Which word beginning with the letter C is sometimes used to designate a heart attack and sometimes used
East Rankin, Tyler.
Cardiac arrest.
No.
sometimes used as an adjective to describe either of the arteries that supply blood?
Taylorsville, Matthew.
Time, coronary was the word we were looking for. A math question for 10 points. The fastest elevator in the world travels upward at 900 feet per minute. If it drops at 1,200 feet per minute, how many seconds after leaving the top of a 1,350 foot tall building will it reach the 30th floor 950 feet above ground?
East Rankin, Tyler.
20 seconds.
Yes.
Correct. A 10-point toss-up. A 1998 article in the journal Science argues that the Earth went through 4 ice ages between 750 and 570 million years ago, each one ending when which gas? Don't have time to finish. That is the end of our competition. We'll be back in a moment with the final score. At the end of this competition, our final score, Taylorsville 95, East Rankin 455. So East Rankin Academy will advance to our semifinals.